Hi guys, it's Tara here. You guys have been requesting to see my technique to do fur. Um, I'll just I'll just show you, okay? Getting my pencils. Okay. So, firstly, don't try and do colored pencil on any type of paper but like a smooth watercolor paper if you're going to use solvent, because it just doesn't work. The other types of paper, like computer paper, just you need something absorbent like a watercolor paper. Um, I usually try to use at least 5 different colors for fur. It just gives it more depth. If you use, say, 3 colors, it's not going to look as realistic. So I'll just get started and give you a little bit of a demonstration on just how to apply this technique. So I like to start with my darkest color. Some people do it the other way around. It doesn't really matter. I just prefer to do it this way. So it's just literally making lines. I like to leave space in between them for my highlights. So if you're making an area darker, you just put the lines closer together, like so. And you can even use more colors in that section. You always want to look at your reference photo and make sure that you're getting your line length pretty close. Otherwise you'll end up with a shaggy looking animal. And fur direction. Always pay attention to the direction of the fur. So I guess I pretty much just like to get my shapes in with my black. I'm not pressing hard because I need to do several layers. So once you press too hard with colored pencil, it just flattens out the paper and the paper is just not going to take anymore. So if you go lightly at first, get all your layers in. That's the best way to go. You can use your solvent to blend, which is fantastic. Try not to make them all the same as well. Give a bit of shape to your lines, don't just make straight lines. And even though you're getting your fur in the general direction, I still see like I made a couple of hooks and stuff on a few random bits. It just makes it look a bit more real, not so, I don't know the word, the same. So I'm going on to my third color here already. So as you can see, my darkest areas, I just make sure my lines are closer together, leaving obviously less white showing through. As I fan out and go into my highlighted areas, I'm just leaving more gaps. My lines are further apart. I know this doesn't look like much yet, but it just takes many, many layers to achieve the effect. Onto my fourth color. You can see in my darkest area there, there's hardly any white left showing through. So I've started forming a few clumps at the top here. So basically I'm just making my lines closer together again. Into my lightest color now. Usually when you get to your lightest color, you don't even necessarily have to do lines. I'm going to blend out with the solvent in a minute, so I could actually like color with this instead of doing lines, just to get some shadow, some very subtle shadow, and obviously extra added color into my picture. Trying to leave some nice white patches for highlights as well. I don't know how this is looking on the screen, but just looking into the camera, the colors look very washed out. So just at this point, I'm going to use my solvent just to blend everything, and then I can go over and make the colors a bit deeper. So I'm just using a little round filbert brush for this. Usually I go in the direction of the fur because this actually picks up the pigment and kind of ends up being like a little bit like paint. Well, it's more so with the darker colors, but as you can see, I'm being pretty rough with my brush. Obviously, the more you rub over, the more it will blend. So that's a good base to start. So I'm going to try and move you slightly closer. It's really not showing up that well. Okay, so now, normally I am doing time lapse and I let this dry in between. I think I'll just keep going on it. You can usually, if I work on it when it's wet, it just sort of picks up a lot more color off the pencils rather than if you let it dry. So anyways, we'll just keep going and see what happens. So basically, your second coat now really starts to define. So I'm coming back with my black again now. And you can really start to define any little details in there, because now you have that really nice base. Basically, with the black, I'm basically drawing the shadow that's in between the bits of hair, not necessarily drawing black hair. So I'm just going to work through my colors again and just to enhance the depth in this, because you know, once you go over it with your black again, you can kind of make it look a bit wiry and not so realistic. When you really want to define some of the fur in the lighter areas, yeah, you don't have to use the black. You can use just a darker version of that color. So you always see me typing. I usually type in my videos because I just can't, as you've probably noticed, can't explain things quick enough half the time. Building up layers is so important. You can see how different this looks to when we did the first sort of layer of colors, and how much more depth this is getting now. So as you can see, again, I'm not just doing straight lines. Every line has a slight curve to it. Just makes it look more natural. So yep, just my highlighted areas, I'm just leaving that white showing through, or the lighter colors showing through. When I use my lighter colors, I usually work my way back into my highlights a bit, just so there's not a hard edge. So we're nearly done here. I'm gonna go over this with my, what do you call it? Solvent again in a minute. So my last bit of solvent. I'm usually a bit more careful in the final layers with the solvent. Just, you don't want to go too hard or you'll just blend it all in. You won't see your fur, your nice lines that you've made. Trying to work around the camera and it's actually a little bit awkward, so and that's pretty much about it. Some people do like to, if you don't want to just use your paper showing through as your highlights. Sorry, I'm getting a pen out, a pencil. You can use like a white pencil as well. The one that stands out the most that I've found is the, how do you even, luminance, white luminance pencil. It stands out nicely. So you can always do the odd hair with the luminance. Always going in the same direction as your fur. Normally, again, I would have let this dry first, but that's fine for this demo. Okay, and that's about it. That's a patch of fur. So that is my fur technique.